So at the 8 o'clock service, one of the people who came, Marty Vonnegut and his wife Mary Jane, were there, and we read from the book of this letter to James. And just seeing Marty there reminded me of a story of when I first came. I came to Good Shepherd in June of 2009. So what happens in June? But the Wednesday barbecues start up, right? So I came to my first summer barbecue. And this is also going to be a story about your dad, Scott. Buck Hawthorne, who has since passed away. May he rest in peace. So there I am at my first barbecue, not knowing a soul, really. And in comes Buck and Marty. Now, if you did not have the pleasure of knowing Buck, he wore an eye patch, like a black eye patch, and a nail through his ear. And he had on a wife beater, shirt. So he comes in with Marty, and I think I must have imagined the motorcycles, because I don't think it's actually on motorcycles, but like that, and I'm like, okay, I am the rector of this church. I need to protect my people. Buck and Marty are the sweetest people ever. I mean, Buck made for me needlepoint. He did needlepoint. And in fact, Scott, you just brought a lot of his yarn. And he donated fabric, fabric and yarn. He was a knitter, a needlepointer. I have these lovely little framed needlepoints that he did of like little angels, So this is Buck. Oh, show no partiality. Do not judge. You just never know. You do not know who is, who you're speaking to. Angels in disguise. When we did iHelp here, anyone remember? We were doing iHelp. It's no longer in the area, so otherwise we would still be doing it at Good Shepherd. But what iHelp is a program whereby homeless men would gather at one place, a van would pick them up, and every night of the year they would have arranged with a church or a synagogue, some place of faith, that they would stay overnight, and the congregation would feed them in the evening, feed them breakfast, and then send them on their way. So we did that for years here at Good Shepherd. And not only did we feed them, but one of the things I loved was that we sat down and ate with people. So we would bring dinner, and then we would sit and eat together. And eating with these people was you would just hear the most amazing stories. But one day I sat with a young man who said, I remember this place really well. I came to preschool here. Yeah, he was one of our preschool kids, who knows what happened, but something did. It just, and I know at First United Methodist, you hear all kinds of stories, there but for the grace of God, right? There but for the grace of God, go ye. So show no partiality. One of my favorite evangelists is named Jim Wallace. He heads up an organization in Washington, D.C. called Sojourners. It's a place of faith, a deep place of faith, evangelism, and they work on social policy, public policy. But he tells the story of when he grew up in a religiously conservative church and household. And at one time when he was, getting to be an older teenager, young adult, he became quite engaged. He took his faith very seriously. And so he became engaged in the social outreach of what his faith led him into. And an elder of the church took him aside and said, Jim, you know that our faith is our personal business. But it really, it doesn't affect our social outlook. In other words, there's this division, don't get political, because our faith is personal, it is not political. And he left the church at that point. He just said, this makes no sense to me, and it doesn't, it's hypocritical. He felt that it was hypocritical at the time, so he left the church. And then he fortunately met up with Christians who understood that there is no division, that our lives are of a piece, and our faith is of a piece, and Jesus speaks to the whole of our lives. And so he came back into the church, and in fact entered seminary at Trinity Divinity School, which is a more conservative evangelical seminary. And then has had an active life of ministry ever since. But in his first year of seminary, he and a group of seminarians got together and they said, we wonder about this poverty, wealth, and justice kind of thing. What does the Bible actually say about that? And so they went through from Genesis to Revelation. And they just took a pen and kind of circled, every text that talked about poverty, wealth, and justice. And they ended up with over 2,000 texts that were circled. And then one of them, Bob Sabbath, got this idea, let's cut those verses out. Seminarians, what can you say? So this must have taken, it took them quite some time to do this, but they ended up cutting out each of those verses, and they ended up with what they called a Bible full of holes, or a Holy Bible. And he still had that Bible. It turns out that God deeply, deeply cares about the poor, and deeply, deeply cares about justice. There are more texts in the Bible that talk about poverty, wealth, and justice than talk about love, and certainly more than talk about heaven or hell. So it's very clear that, and I've never done this, but I think it would be interesting if had a week to go through and do that. But over 2,000 texts, and you end up with a very holy Bible. It turns out that this well-meaning elder in the church was outside of the Orthodox faith. He was misguided. Out of the best of intentions, misguided. Jim Wallace was in the mainstream of orthodoxy, stretching back to the prophets, to Jesus, to this letter of James, to John Chrysostom, who was understood to be, he was called the Golden Mouth preacher. He was in the 11th century, and in Turkey, Constantinople, in a extremely wealthy congregation. The temple was, or the cathedral was plated in gold. But no one surpassed him for drawing out the moral implications that are revealed by the words of Christ as recorded in the Gospels. He didn't ever hesitate in following the Gospel, and in so doing, turning upside down the values of this world. So this is what he says about true wealth and poverty. Let us learn from he's talking about the parable of the rich man and Lazarus, the rich man who steps over Lazarus. Lazarus is lying at his gate, begging, extremely poor, and the rich man doesn't see him, just steps right over and goes on his way. So he's preaching about this parable. And he says, let us learn from this man not to call the rich lucky, nor the poor unfortunate. Rather, if we are to tell the truth, the rich man is not the one who has collected many possessions, but the one who needs few possessions, right? The one who's content with that. That's true wealth, the one who needs few possessions. And the poor man is not the one who has no possessions, but the one who has many desires. Think about that for a little bit, right? The poor man is not the one who has no possessions, but the one who has many desires. So when we desire, that creates poverty of spirit within us. When we are content with what we have, that creates wealth, richness within us. Does that make sense? I mean, it's true to our own experience, right? Right? I mean, anyway, I can tell, we could all tell many, many stories of things that we have desired, that we've wanted and wanted, and then when we get them, we realize, like, that was nice. But it doesn't keep us fulfilled for long. True wealth is desiring little. True poverty is desiring too much. If, on the other hand, John Chrysostom says, if you see someone with few needs, you should count him the richest of all, even if he has acquired nothing. I don't have a whole lot more to share with you. I just want to mostly share with you this morning that the gospel truth. That we take what we have, and when we share it, when we're open-handed and generous with what we have, when we allow the scales to fall from our eyes of judging others by appearance, we step into the true wealth of the kingdom. And this brings us joy. It brings us real and true joy. May this joy be there for each one.